So icons on the desktop will be visible based on the roles and permissions assigned to you. So now let's the very basic master in a services or in any business for that matter is the item master. So we can navigate to item master from here. These are some of the items we have already available in our item master. Let's add a new service item. So say IT consultancy is our new item. Let's categorize is as services. Now when you are adding services item, uh, okay, let's check the unit of measurement as hours for this. Now this field is very important when you are adding a service item, maintain stock. This field must be unchecked. Let's set the standard selling rate or billing rate is 100 per hour. So we have added a service item this way. This is pretty simple. You just need to ensure that the maintain stock field is not checked when you are adding a service item. You can add detailed description about the service you offer here. Okay, this won't be a purchase item, so you can uncheck this. It will be a sales item, so this can be checked. And you can also define if there are specific taxes applied on this item, so you can also check this field. Using this item you can make all these sales and purchase transactions. uh, so just like let's assume that you want to quote your client for the services you offer, so we can directly go to quotation, select customer, select your service item, say IT consultancy. Now here say you want to bill that client for or quote that client for 10 hours of work, and rate has fetched from the item master, so you get the total here. And you can apply taxes just by just selecting the taxes and charges master template. Same way you can also select the terms, so terms will be added in your quotation, so this is saved. And then you can check the preview. So this is your company's letterhead, customer detail. This is your service item. For 10 hours you're billing your client at the rate of 100 rupees. So this is your amount and this is your tax breakup, right? So now let's assume that we receive a confirmation from our client. They send us a purchase order, so we can convert this into sales order in our system. So you can create sales order from the quotation. You will have all the item details and tax details fetched from the sales order itself. So this is pretty much the making transactions for the service item is pretty much the same. We do it for the stock item, just that instead of a stock item we select a service item, right? What's generally very important in for a services business is managing projects. So let's say we win a project from a client, so how do we track that in our ERP account, and how do we do billing from that project? So let's quickly go to a project module. You can go to project module from explore projects and add a new project from here. Say mobile app for business, right? This is and this is a quick entry form, so you can put an expected end date here, right? So project is created. Now in this project you can put customer details here. What's the sales order? Let's say this is the sales order. And in project module now you can define if you have added your customers as a user in your ERPNX account, or more precisely as a website user in your ERPNX account, you can select them here. So when they log in using your portal, they'll be able to access it as well. And in the task, you can define, say designing is the first task. It starts from here and it ends here, right? And then prototype could be another task. It starts from here and ends here. then final app development could be another task, starts from here and ends here. Then comes testing and delivery, starts from here and ends here. And so you can also define a multiple task within a project and save it. Now you can see that as soon as we have added task in the project master, if you go to task here, you'll see that system has automatically created tasks in the backend, right? So you can this allows you to specifically assign design task to someone in your company. Same way you can assign this task to one of your user. So what you do first is you divide your project into multiple tasks, and against this task, let's say it was assigned to me, so I can and in the task, the new feature which we have, the Gantt chart, so you can also see the complete all the tasks in a Gantt view. So you can switch if you want to see a list view or if you want to see a Gantt view. And you can also this Gantt view is also editable. So let's say if I was working on design, and I have completed something, so I can also update status. So and I can also change the start date and end date right from here, right from the Gantt view itself. Right. So let's say this was assigned to me, and I did some work on it. Okay. In the task, then now you can also define the dependency. It's like you cannot do prototyping unless and until you have designs. So you can also define that this prototyping is dependent on this task. So you can save it, and same way you can define that final app development is dependent on prototype. And then comes testing and delivery comes on final app, and we can save it. So if we go back to task and if we see Gantt view, now you can also see the dependencies. So now let's go about updating task. So let's say if I have done some work on designing, it was assigned to me, and it has all these values updated here. It was expected start date was this, end date was this, and so these all these are estimations. Now when I actually work on it, it could be something different what was estimated. So I make a timesheet against a task to track actual details. So I can make a timesheet against a task. In here I'll select what was the activity type, say it was research from hours. I'll also select specific hours of the day. So I spent like 5 hours on this task. Project was this, and task was designing. Is it billable? So if you are billing your client based on how much actual time you spent on that project, you should check this is billable. Yes. So billing hours was 5. So what is the billing rate? Say billing rate is 100, but what is actually costing rate for the company? Say costing rate for the company is 80. So you can also update it, and you can also update it in the activity type itself, so you won't have to enter it manually when you are making timesheet. So let's save this, save and submit. Now when you make timesheet, it updates our task as well. So if you go back to the task, and now you can see what was the actual start date and what is the actual end date, how much time was actually spent on it, what was the total costing amount, and what was the total billing amount. Based on the timesheet we have made, this is updated. And you can also update the progress, say it is 50% completed. So now it will also reflect in the Gantt view that it is 50% completed. And you can also update the progress right from here. So it is 80% completed. So you can update it from here itself. It's 80% completed. Okay, so let's stop here for first Q&A round. If you have any queries, please post it in the chat section. Okay, so we have some queries here. Uh, can we have a template? Okay, so currently we don't have a template, but you can use a duplicate feature in a project module as a workaround. But for now, we don't have a template. But yes, we keep receiving that feature suggestion off and on. So it's not yet on our roadmap, but maybe in future you can expect something of that sort. But for now, you can duplicate project for that requirement. Okay, then what is this? What is the use of assign to? Okay, so task is generally very big in size, but you can't assign task to one person. So you have to divide that. You have to. I'm sorry, you can't assign a whole project to one person. So you have to divide that project into multiple and assignable tasks. So you divide that project into multiple tasks, and then you can use assign to feature to allocate and assign it to a specific person. Okay, so Ranjan here asking how do you link project to item? So project is generally not linked to an item, but you can link project to all your sales and purchase transaction. So I can quickly show you this. We just made a sales order. So in the sales order, we have a project field. Okay, let me cancel and amend this. So this is how you can also edit the submitted transactions. You can just cancel and then amend them. So in the more info section, you have this field project, and in here you can select the specific project for which the sales order was made. Right. So this is one option you have. Uh, and then you have purchase transactions. So you can make a new purchase order, and in the purchase order you'll find option to select specific project here. So if you want to track how much sales and how much purchases are you doing, and if you want to track if you're making a profit or no for this particular project, so you can track it by selecting the project in all your sales and purchase transactions. Okay, so if task one is delayed, will it affect the other task automatically? It won't, but it will show you dependency and stuff, but it won't affect your task, another task. Okay, how do you assign task to group of users and how to create the group? Okay, so you can actually identify roles, because you can assign one role to a group of users. So instead of defining there's no option for defining a role, but you can define a specific role to multiple users. So you can maybe use one of the standard roles like project user or a project manager, or you can also make a new role and then assign that specific role to the group to whom you want to assign that project to. Sure, you can also do budgeting for projects. So for that, you'll have to create a cost center. So for you can use a cost center feature, and then against that cost center, you can make a budget in ERP Next. So we have a dedicated help video for it. Maybe you can go through that later on how to do budgeting in ERP Next. So here's the help video on how to do budgeting in ERP Next, and you'll be able to track profitability if you're if you have consistently selected your project in the sales as well as in the purchase transaction. Okay, so I think these are the queries we have for now on the project module. So let's move forward to our demo. So we made timesheet for one of our task. Now let's make timesheet for all the tasks, and then we'll see how we can make sales invoice from those timesheets. So design was first task, and let's say prototype was another task. So I'll also quickly make timesheet against it. Activity type could be say planning from time, could be this. So I spent like 10 hours on a prototype. Project was this, task was prototype to bill. If you're billing your client based on the actual hours spent on a project, so we can save and submit this. Up next would be the another task which would be final app development. So I'll make a timesheet against this task. In here I'll select execution from time was this, and I spent like 20 hours on this. Project was, then I'll select specific task, final app development to bill, yes. Billing rate say 120, costing rate is 100. Right, so this is also done. Save and submit. Now there's a final task against which we need to make a timesheet. So how much testing we did, we can also track that in the timesheet itself. So so we started here, and we spent like 8 hours on testing and fixing to bill. Set was 80, billing rate is 80, and this is 70. Done. Save and submit. Now you can notice since we have checked billing here, when we submit sales invoice, you see option to make sales invoice right from here. And you can also make salary slip against the timesheet. If you pay to your employees based on actual number of hours they have worked for, but that's a part of HR module. So let's stick to the sales module, wherein we first received a project from our customer, and that project said that you will be billing client based on number of hours you have spent on that project. So we have tracked how many hours was spent on a project, and based on that we'll now make a sales invoice for the customer. So we have all these timesheets which was made against that against this project. So now let's see how we can make a sales invoice from here. So I'll click on make sales invoice button here. So all this detail, now we are navigated to sales invoice. We'll select a customer, we'll select an item, and then we can select the other timesheets for which we need to bill our client. So as soon as I select a timesheet, system fetches billing hours and billing amount. The sum total of this billing amount is what will enter here. So IT consultancy, and the total hours 30, 35, 43, right? And then we have total billing amount. So we can also set rate accordingly. So we'll have this, and then in the sales invoice, now we can select the income account. Was this income received from the sales or from the services? So if you want to track income, all the income received from services, you can select that income account here. There won't be any stock related detail because this is a service item, right? And now we can save and submit the sales invoice. Save and submit. Okay, so now ultimately we had the total billing amount corrected on sales invoice, but we should have it corrected as soon as, or probably I selected this timesheet first as 500, and then when I selected other timesheet, that was not added up to the total. It did the total when I saved that sales invoice. We have the sales invoice made for the services, and now if we go back to the timesheet, it says it's billed. So timesheet status is updated here based on if it is, if there's a sales invoice created against it. Right, so let's say we go to sales invoice which we just made, and let's assume that client makes payment to us. So when he actually makes, and now we follow accrual system, we assume that client will be paying us in a future date. So we first make a sales invoice which books income in our bank account. So income is booked here. At the same time, the receivable is also booked, so we can track from which customer how much payment is pending, and we can also check our account receivable report. So we'll know, okay, this is the sales invoice against which this is the billing amount, and this is the outstanding amount. So you can also track this. So when we actually receive payment from the customer, we can make a payment entry. Let's say client makes payment, or if he makes partial payment, then you can also edit the payment amount. Say he's making payment of this much amount only, right? So you can also manage partial payments against the sales invoice. Now you enter payment amount, then you enter allocate that payment against specific sales invoice, and then comes this very particular check number and check reference. So you can also update that in your payment entry. So your payment entry is made. Now if you go back to your sales invoice, its status is updated as paid. Right, and I think before that we have checked the status of timesheet. So this is how you can go about doing it. So this is in case wherein you don't have a fixed billing amount when you started or when you received the order from the client. It was based on actual time spent by your engineers or your employees on a specific project. So we tracked actual hours spent on a project via timesheet, and then we made sales invoice from that timesheet, right? And let's say if you had already identified what would be the charges. Say you want to install AC in your office. So your suppliers tell you that this would be the amount. It doesn't depend on how much time it takes. So in that case, you can directly make a sales order, or you can directly make sales invoice as well. So in here you can select the customer details, and then you can select what would be you can make, let's say we make another service item, say installation services. Maintain stock would be unchecked. Here you can set it based on our set based on unit. For installation of 1 unit of an AC, what would be the rate? So that is created and updated. Say it would be 1000 for installation of an AC in our office. So we can just save this for a service, and then we can submit this. And again, this sales order, now you can make a sales invoice. So the item and rate is fetched from your sales order. In the item master, you can select it can be booked under sales income account as well. If needed, then you can also switch and select services as an income account, right? And then you can save it and submit it. Rest remains the same. Against this sales invoice, you can create payment entry as and when you receive payment from your client. So that part remains same. So we can have another round of Q&A here. Okay, so I hope you are able to see timesheet. Okay, Ranjan, you can very much create sales invoice without sales order as well. Sales order is recommended if you want to track complete deal. So again, sales order, you can track how much delivery is done and how much invoicing is done. If you're doing a partial delivery and partial invoicing to the customer, in that case, creating sales order is very useful. But if you are doing sales invoice and payment at one go, then you can very much create sales invoice directly. You don't need to always, it's not mandatory to create a sales order all the time. All right, so aging report. So aging report is you will find the relevant information in the account receivable report itself. So I think we have already checked that. Accounts receivable report. So in this report, you'll be able to see how much is aging. So based on the due date, you can also set you want to see aging based on due date or posting date. Right? So by default it is due date, and in here you'll be able to see how much is age, and you'll be how much amount you'll be receiving next 30 days and next 60 days, next 90 days, and more than 90 days. So that's available within account receivable report itself. You can very much export the report. Let's say I was on timesheet, right? So I can make a custom report on timesheet itself. I can add which all columns I want to see in the report, right? Say actual hours, or say employee name, and project, and then you have task. So you can also customize your reports right from here. And if you want, then you can export it from menu, click on export. So it will be downloaded as an Excel file in your ERP Next account. Okay, so Fred here is asking, what if I have more than one project on a timesheet for a different customers? Will it create multiple invoices? So it will be recommended you maintain a separate timesheet for each customer and each project. So you can easily do invoicing against that timesheet. Let's say today I work for on two different project. First 3 hours is for one project, and another 3 hours is for another project. So I'll make two timesheets, and because in the timesheet you can select only one project. So it will be the recommended approach to make a separate timesheet for each project. Okay, Praful, can you please elaborate on maker and checker concept? Do you mean you want someone to approve it and then it should be submitted or something like that? Okay, yeah, so you can actually control it using the save and submit functionality as well itself. So the timesheet is a submittable document, and for timesheet you can define role and permissions. So by default, HR user and all these users has permission on timesheet. The way you can define it is, say a project user currently has submit permission. So say you can simply uncheck submit permission for this user, and you can give submit permission for the project user. So all the users you have or all the other employees you have will make first draft. They should only be assigned project users role, and only manager should have submit role. So I think you can manage this using the save and submit functionality itself. And if you want to further complicate it, have a much more complicated approval mechanism, then you can also use workflows, wherein you can define multiple users and approvers who will be reviewing timesheet and approving. Okay, so this is about the sales side of services business. Services side is pretty much the same, just that instead of making purchase order for a stock item, we make purchase order for services item. So how much our supplier has quoted us, so you enter that amount here. Apart from that, everything remains same, just like we do it in the stock transaction. You have to select taxes, and you have to select terms and condition. That all that part remains pretty much the same. And just like we have on the sales side, you can directly make purchase invoice. Same way, you can directly make purchase invoice for your installation expenses as well. So in here now you can select the when you are making sales invoice, you can select what would be the expense account in the purchase invoice, say equipment, electronic, or whatever the expenses. If you have made specific cost center for that project or for that, so you can also define that in the purchase invoice. And as soon as you submit a purchase invoice for a service item, expense will be booked for it right away. Okay, so this is the general ledger, and in here you can see that payable is updated, and this is the expense account. So expense account is debited right away. So expense, if you have perpetual inventory valuation system activated in your ERP Next account, then expense will be booked only if you make purchase invoice for the services item. If you make a purchase receipt and purchase invoice for the stock item, then expense won't be booked right then. At that point, only current asset stock is affected. For the stock item, expense is booked when you deliver that item out of your stock. But for the service item, expense is booked as soon as you submit purchase invoice for it. And then comes the payment part. When you make payment to your client, you make payment entry against it. So with this, you enter payment amount, allocate payment amount against purchase invoice, save and submit. So your purchase transaction is also done. Okay, reference number and reference date is pretty simple. Save and submit. Right. So now this should be updated as submit as paid. So this is pretty simple. And then we have a very important module for the services business, which is issues. So we use issues a lot internally to track all our customer queries. So whenever you receive a new inquiry from the customer or any issue, you should open a new issue. Say working, for example, raised by, so enter their email ID, issue, say getting error, save it. So this is logged, and then you can also select the customer manually if you wish to. The details will be fetched from the customer master if they were in the customer master, right? So this is one way of making issues manually. But what we do in our ERP Next account is we have automated issues creation. So we have made an email account, and in the email account you can define, say this is my support ID and this is my account password. And as soon as I receive any email on this particular email ID, I want that email to be pulled into my ERP Next account, and say this is my incoming mail server, and I want that mail to be appended to issues. So whenever you receive any email on this particular email ID of yours, that will be pulled automatically and issue will be created. Right? So this way you can automate creation of issues, and not just issues, but also you can automate creation of opportunities. So if you have sales ID, sales at yourcompany.com, so you can also use this feature. This is very effective, and this is what we use. So if you email us on support at erpnext.com, that is pulled and issue is automatically created in our ERPnext account, and then we communicate with that client from the issue itself. Your the client's email will be appended here, and then we reply to that. So the complete email communication and thread is maintained in the issue master itself. So that's very convenient to track all the communication and to assign issues to your colleagues. That becomes very convenient, and you find everything in one place. So this is how you can track your customer issues and automate it. The another useful feature we have in the support module is warranty claim. So warranty claim is say there are something some items wherein you also have to provide product as well as services. Say if you are selling a laptop, and that laptop could have a warranty, right? So say you sell a specific laptop to a client, and now the client comes to you saying that something is not working, right? So the first thing you would ask your client is what is the serial number of that client, of that PC, right? So you can track serialized inventory in your ERPNext account. I think we saw that in the last session we had. In the warranty claim, all you need to do is just select the serial number. So on selection of serial number, it will fetch customer detail, and will also fetch what was the item detail, and if it is under warranty or no. Because in the serial number, all these details are tracked. When did you purchase it? When did you sell it? To whom it was sold? At what rate? And if it is under warranty or no, right? So you have all these on selection of serial number. All these values are fetched. So you inspect the item and say fan is not working, for example, in the PC. So this way you can raise a warranty claim, and then you can again assign it to someone. If you are making sales of some spare parts, then you can and let's say you replace a fan or something, and you want to bill your client separately for that, then you can raise another sales order or make a sales invoice against that customer. So that has that the sales you make against a servicing of product, that has to be tracked separately by making another sales cycle, right? But what is the status of this whole issue, the warranty? You can track it here, and you can assign to one of your colleague, and once it is resolved, then you can also put resolution details. You can also update say it's closed or work in progress, resolved by whom it was resolved, and say replaced with new fan or something. So you can also track your issue your warranty claims here. So we have seen serial number. So say, for the serialized item, serial number will be updated as soon as you receive them in your warehouse. And then you have communication. So communication is like an email. So if let's say I was on issues, and if I send an email, hi, uh, please share complete error message. So if I send an email to the client from here, what system does in the backend, it will add a communication. So that same email is added as a communication. So communication is like a complete mailbox wherein all the incoming and outgoing emails are tracked. So and then there are some reports related to support analytics. What was the first response time? So response yeah, support analytics is like how many tickets were raised. You can also filter it. It's a little graphical analysis here. And then we have minutes to first response. So we gave lots of emphasis on our response time. And then this report came out of a sheer need. We wanted to track how well we are responding to our clients, right? So using this report, you can track what is the total overall response time against issues. So you can track, and you can track that it's not going out of your hands. It should be in control. So if you have any queries for what we have covered till now, please put this in the chat section. Anyone who has any queries in what we have covered till now? If you have any queries, please post your queries in the chat section. I'll be happy to answer that. Okay, so how can we create cash invoices and credit invoices separately? So cash invoices is like an instant purchase, or you can also consider it to be a point of sale transaction. This is how you can make if you don't want to track outstanding and stuff, so you can right away make a sales invoice for which payment will be made right then. So if you check this field is pause and then you select, so you'll be able to enter payment detail right in the sales invoice itself. Payment, what was the mode of payment? Say it was cash and 100, or for example, right? So you won't have to separately make a payment entry for this. And then there's a whole module of point of sale, wherein if you are into retail, then you can use point of sale feature for making your sales invoices quickly. I think we have seen the credit side, wherein your receivable is booked first and then you make payment entry against it. Okay, Satish wants to know more about custom reports. Leah, let me quickly give you a demo on how you can make custom reports. Sales invoice. So let's say we are on the sales invoice and you want to make a report on a custom report on sales invoice. So these are all the columns we have in the sales invoice report. Let's say you want to customize which all columns would be visible. So you can add and remove columns from here. So you want to also add project field in here, and you also want to change its allocation, right? So this way you can make custom reports. You can apply filters. Say what's the outstanding amount, should not be greater than say 100. So you can also filter reports like this, and then you can also export it if you wish to print or export it. Or you can also set up an auto email. So if you want that this report should be emailed to you automatically once in a week or daily or once in a month, so you can use this feature, auto email reports. This is relatively a very new feature, wherein you can select, okay, this is the report which I want to receive on weekly basis or monthly basis or daily basis. What would be the format in which it would be sent, on which email id it would be sent. So you can simply save this and you'll start receiving this report automatically via email. I'll just give you a scenario. Let's say we are selling computers, desktop computers, right? So we can add a desktop computer as a non-stock item in our ERPNX account, but in that product bundle, we'll have to add. In here you could select say desktop computer as a non-stock item, but in the child table you'll have to select stock item. Say when you say one desktop computer, it means one monitor, it means one CPU, it means one mouse, it means one keyboard. What's the purpose of this feature? When you're making quotation or a sales order or a sales invoice, you don't want to select each item one by one. You just select this main desktop item, which is actually a service item. So when you make a sale for this item, it will automatically deduct off all the stock items from your warehouse. So this is your product bundle item has to be a service item, but the child items cannot be a service item. It has to be stock items. So if you have a different bundle of a services itself, then I'm sorry, but you can't make product bundle for the services item. But as a workaround, you can use duplicate feature. If you have already made a sales order or a quotation for the service which has 10 different or 5 different services in it, then you can use a duplicate feature to make a new order on the same lines. Say this is a service, say you could have 5 different items, so you can quickly create a new quotation by just duplicating. So all these items with rates will be fetched. So for now we don't have a feature to track all the service bundles for now, but as a workaround you can use this feature. For now it's allowed services. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure about it earlier, but seems it's working as Shoaib has also checked it. Great. So Shubham, that's a complete solution for you. Okay, so this is a very standard query. You want to track who can you view which task, right? So we have standard assign to field here. You can use this assign to field, but we cannot do permission restriction based on this field assigned to. So we have to you'll have to add a custom field in your task, wherein you will be able to define to whom this task will be allocated to. Right, let me add a custom field here. So that's another useful feature of ERP Next. Say allocated to, it will be a linked field and it's linked to user master. Right, so I have added this field and saved it. Task updated, refresh it. So now if I see a task, I have allocated to field here, and in here I can select who will be able to view that task. Let me add a new user quickly to whom we can assign, and then we can check if user permission works for it at erpnext.com. Gosh. Right. Let me quickly set password for this user right from here, so we can, and then we can also assign the role of project user to this. But my point was in the project master, in the task master, you can define. So on this allocated to field, you'll be able to define who can view what. So from task, we can go to role permission manager, and in the role permission manager, you can check apply user permission based on user field. Right? So if you do this, then if there is a user with project user role, then that user will be able to see tasks which are assigned to him, or where he is selected in the allocated to field. He won't be able to view a task where he's not selected as allocated to. Assigned to is something which is public, so it's like we use issues internally, and we don't set any permission on issues. All issues are visible to everyone, but at the same time it is assigned. So we know that how many open issues are there, to whom it is assigned, and if they are responding or not responding. So assigned to is like more open. Same way assigned to is like very generic in nature, so one can make sales order and he can assign it to the accounts manager, right? So that will be there. Sales order is completed, but someone has to again take action on it and make invoice against it. Yeah, so that's a link field, and you can only select one user at a time. Maybe you can uh, the another option I can think of is a share functionality. So in task, we just saw the role permission manager working. I wasn't able to see task because there were no tasks where I was defined as allocated to. So okay, in case you have multiple users to whom task is to be allocated, perhaps you can use share with functionality. And in share, you can define to whom it will be shared with. Add, right? So even if a user didn't have project user role, but if you share, then all the roles and permission configuration will be bypassed, and that user will be able to access it. So perhaps that's the another thing you can see, and only users you add using this functionality will be able to access this task. So this is I mean, this was you could say was inspired from share functionality in say Google Docs. You can just share the link and that user will be able to view it. So you can explicitly define which user will be able to view, even if the roles assigned to that user didn't permit seeing this doc type. He'll be able to see if you share it using this functionality. Great. Glad it answered your query. You have to share a specific document. You can't share multiple documents at once, because this is very critical feature. And if one does sharing for multiple documents by mistake, I mean, that can lead to issues. Sure, sure. You can add so Shubham asked if we can add a custom attribute which user can write at the time of creating any invoice. Why not? You can add custom fields, and in that custom field, you can enter values while you're making sales invoice. So when you're making sales invoice, even item name and description, all these fields are editable. You can use the standard fields, or you can add custom field for adding more attributes related to services you're offering, and that will be very much editable when you're making sales invoice. So yeah, if you have more queries, then please feel free to share it on support at erpnix.com, and we'll be happy to answer that. I really hope you found this session useful. If you have any feedback on what we could have done better, then please email to us. We'll be looking forward to your feedback. If you have any suggestions, we are welcome to that too. And I'll look forward to see you all in the next week. Thanks everyone for your kind remarks, and please keep your suggestions coming. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.